In today's session, we're going to be talking about, should you use some of the equity out of your own personal residential house to aid your investment journey? Before we do that, I want to say a quick hello and welcome to all listeners and subscribers all around the world. Just to let you know that this is sponsored by the Property Investor app, which is the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. Whether you're looking for that below market value deal, that rent to rent deal, that lease option deal, and we've got them all on the platform. So there are two ways to get involved. You can either go to the website, which is propertyinvestораpp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. Now, this week's episode comes from another question from someone that's been on my website, which is arshilahi.com/ask Arsh. And on there, they've left us a web inquiry, and the question that was put forward was, "Hi Arsh, I don't have much cash in the bank, but I've got a fair amount of equity in my property. Would you recommend refinancing my own residential house in order to use those funds to invest in some investment properties?" Now, this question kind of put me in two places, and I'm going to take you through both scenarios. And it's a great question because there's lots of people right now that may be in a similar scenario where they may not potentially have sufficient funds because it's all tied up or they don't have the funds, but they may have equity in their property. Now, before I was asked this question, I was always of the mindset, you know what, whatever happens in your property investment journey, do not touch your own residential dwelling. And the reason why I used to say that is because I used to say your home is your home and that's where your family lives, and your investments, and don't get emotional about it. Now, I always used to believe that, and I never have up to this day taken any money out of my residential home to help with purchasing investment properties. But I sat down, I actually thought about this, and I actually did a bit of research on this. So I want to thank Mr. G, who's based in Gloucestershire, for putting forward this question. And when I looked at it, I thought, well, in actual fact, it actually makes sense to take money out of your residential dwelling on a refinance. And let's think of the benefits of that. First of all, refinance funds, let's face it, they're tax-free. Second of all, if you don't use those funds, where else are you going to go to get funds? So are you going to go to get funds via JV partnerships, joint venture money, or let's use the term that everyone uses, OPM, other people's money? And when you look at the interest that you're paying on that, and also potentially the equity stake you're giving away for that money. So on average, if you lend money off someone, they'll charge approximately 10% per annum or 12% or 15% per annum. Plus, they may want an equity stake in the business or the property. So if you come to sell it at a later date, you've got to give them equity plus the interest. There's lots of ways of structuring joint ventures, but that's the most common way. Alternatively, you may then go to, let's say, a bridging finance company, and they may charge you approximately 12% per annum, which is on average 1% a month. So when you look at it from that point of view, if you were to refinance your own residential dwelling and get some money out, that money that you would then refinance and get back out would nowhere near be as expensive as the other two options that I've just previously mentioned. So are you actually working smarter by taking out the refinance funds? Now, just bear in mind, and I have to put in this, that this is not deemed as financial advice, and before you embark on any journey, that you go off and get proper and legal financial independent advice. And the reason why I say that is because I don't want everyone listening now to go off and think, you know what, I'm going to refinance my house. I've got 150,000 here. I'm going to refinance my house. I'm going to take that money. I'm going to buy another asset. Now, in principle, yes, it sounds great. You're using those funds wisely because you're using those funds to purchase another income generating asset. And let's just imagine that you manage to pull out 100,000 or 200,000 pounds worth of equity out your property. Ultimately, that's increasing the loan amount. And as a result of increasing the loan amount, will now increase your monthly payments. So please only consider something like this if you've got an investment or a property that you're looking to purchase. There's no point taking money out just for the sake of thinking, oh, there may be an opportunity come soon. Because let's face it, whilst that money's sat in your bank and you've borrowed it and you've drawn it down, that is now costing you money. So costing you money in interest payments. And, you know, let's face it, that even with what we consider the higher interest rates of like 4, 5 or 6%, believe it or not, it's nowhere near as expensive as bridging finance, which is 12%, or, some other commercial or joint venture partnership, which is between 10 to 15%. So it does make sense for you to utilize as much of the lower interest rate money, or let's call it the cheaper methods of finance first, before you go off and start borrowing from other means. Now, if you don't have the means in your residential dwelling to refinance, then yes, you have no real other option other than to look like the options of other people's money and joint venture partnerships or bridging finance. And I'm not putting these kind of strategies down, because I've used bridging finance loads of times. I find that it's a means to an end. I use bridging finance to purchase a property which may not necessarily be mortgageable from the outset, with a view of adding value and then refinancing back out onto a normal term mortgage with a high street lender, with the likes of Shawbrook, Aldermore, Lloyds, Keystone, whoever it may be. There's lots of mortgage companies out there. So I buy properties which may require work, which may be dilapidated, in need of modernisation, which may have structural issues, etc. I purchase them with bridging finance. I then do the work to the property. So in there, I may get development finance, or I might get some form of uplift funds. And off the back of that, I then refinance against the new open market value against a lender such as Shawbrook, Aldermore, etc. So that's how lots of property investors operate. Now, bridging finance is great for that, and bridging finance is great if you're also purchasing at auctions. Now, again, with joint venture partnerships, you've got to get to meet the joint venture. You've got to kind of understand what each party is bringing to the table. You've got to get an agreement put in place, and this all takes time. So if you don't have the funds in your residential dwelling and you are looking for other people's money, it's definitely worth you going out and having those cups of coffee. Now, when I say cups of coffee, you've got to make sure that you're having enough cups of coffee and meeting all kinds of different people, because you're not going to have one cup of coffee and land that investor that's going to be able to fund your next deal. You've got to start to think, can I work with this person? How is it going to work? What's the risk? What's the reward? Who's in it for what? How long are they going to lend me the money for? How much is it going to cost me? So these are all questions. So, if you've got lots of people around you with money, go and take them out for coffee, go and take them out for lunch. And as a result, understand, can you really work together with this person? Now, going back to the residential dwelling. So like I said, I would have definitely said, you know what, leave it alone. But as I started to think about what are the other alternatives to finance, when you think of the bridging finance, when you think of some of the expensive rates for development finance and also other people's money, it's actually the cheapest option for you. So I would say, don't discount it. The things that I would say to you is that if you're in a residential dwelling and you've got a partner, you've got a family, definitely discuss it with those guys first, because you want to make sure that they're on the same hymn sheet and that they understand that the loan amount's going to increase, and as a result, that's now going to increase your payments. But if you justify it in the way, I'm not saying justify it, but if you put it in the format almost like a business plan, and this is what I would have had to have done to my wife, is I would have first of all had to take them out to dinner, second of all perhaps buy them a gift, sweeten them up, but ultimately present it in a business plan. So yes, I'm taking some funds out here, but ultimately this is what I'm going to buy. Now, as a result of me taking out the funds, this is what the loan amount's going to be. Off the back of that, this is what the mortgage payments are going to be, so they can see the increase in mortgage payments. However, this is what we're going to purchase. We're going to purchase this property for 100,000. We're going to do some work to it. It's then going to increase in value up to 150,000. Now, off the back of that, if we refinance it, here's what the mortgage amount is, and here's what the cash flow level is. Now, in an ideal world, that cash flow level that you're going to generate is going to be much more than the increase in your mortgage payment. So not only have you covered the increase in your mortgage payment, but you've got cash flow to show for it, and also another asset to show for it as well. So you're playing the short-term game, you're playing the cash flow game, you're playing the long-term game by capital appreciation, and also you're building that nest egg for your family if you've got children, etc. So definitely benefits in everything that you do there. So there's no right or wrong to this answer, by the way, and I'm still undecided, but when I think about it from a spreadsheet and an analytical point of view, it makes sense to use the cheaper source of finance first before you start going off and using the more expensive methods of finance. There are risks attached to both parts, and the way that I also justified this is that if you default on a bridging loan, ultimately they're going to have a personal guarantee against you anyway. So if you were to default on a bridging loan, they're going to come and try and repossess your house anyway. So why don't you just take the funds from the house anyway? Because if you default on that loan, they're going to come and try and repossess that house anyway. So the risks kind of remain the same. The only difference is the interest levels vary massively from, say, 4% to 12%. And obviously there's a big saving there. And if you can refinance and you can regurgitate and reuse that loan amount time and time again, think about how much money you've saved in interest payments. So there's a real benefit to it. And one of the biggest things is that obviously on a refinance, it is tax-free as well. So that's a big benefit as well. I don't want you to go out and start all refinancing your residential dwelling and causing lots of issues. Please go off and get professional financial advice before you do anything like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please, if you've got any questions, please leave it on my website. Go to www.arshilahi.com/ask Arsh. Thank you for the great question, Mr. G. Hopefully you've really enjoyed the response. Don't forget to press subscribe and hit the notification bell. As well as that, if you want to get social, feel free to find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Clubhouse and TikTok, all under the handles of Arsh Ilahi. And finally, as I said at the start, this is sponsored by Property Investor App, which is the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. Whether you're looking for that below market value deal, that rent to rent deal, that lease option deal, we've got them all there. Now, there are two ways to get involved. You can either go to the website, which is propertyinvestorapp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. So on that note, guys, I wish you all to be safe, well and happy, and I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.